Dudas toe drags, gets it across. Struthers scores! Point number 200 for Matthew Struthers. Now chipped ahead. Here's an opportunity for McMaster right in on the back end, and he hit the side of the net. To the front of the net, Jim, and Denny Gore gets his first Ontario Hockey League goal. Kerwin wins it cleanly to Lyle. Lyle from the left point goes behind the back to Dudas. Dudas gets the shot off, rebound, back in, scores! The Attack have tied it up. Owen Sound has 5 seconds to get something happening. Here is Pearson. Pearson passed it to himself, scores! Pearson, 3-2 Attack. Lesage puts the brakes on nicely, gets it high into the slot, walking through his Kerwin, slides it across, and Lawrence scores! Wins it to Shemitz. His shot does not get through, hits a body. Coming through is Grace, throws it in front, Maidenford, scores! The Ontario Hockey League Championship! Jared Maiden's on the doorstep! I don't believe it!
The Hershey Center goes wild!
Oh, I don't believe it!
OHL champion!
22 years in the making, and the Owen Sound Attack win it in overtime! I don't believe it!
If you're familiar with the sports scene in Owen Sound, you'll know this man. Fred Wallace has been the play-by-play voice of the Owen Sound Attack since the franchise moved to the Scenic City in 1989. He's also the in-house PA announcer at the Harry Lumley Bayshore Community Center. Fred, great to have a longtime OHL voice on today's show.
Well, thank you very much, Josh, and congratulations on this feature. It's interesting to get the perspective and viewpoints right around the league. You know, a lot of these guys are familiar, and some guys, you know, in the other conference, you might see one time, and that's it on the course of the year. So it's an interesting feature. So thanks for having me.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, and I've learned a lot of really cool stuff along the way and gotten to know some of the guys a little better. Tell us a little bit about your path to the microphone in Owen Sound. What was life like up there before the Bears arrived in '89?
Well, it was a very good hockey center. When I arrived, basically at the start of 1985, there was Junior B hockey. And then for 2 years, they had Tier 2 hockey with the Owen Sound Grays and Aurelia Travelways and Dixie Beehives, Newmarket, Redmond, I believe they were called, Richmond Hill Dines. And it was very good hockey because in that loop, you either had guys who were just about to enter the OHL, who were very good players, or guys who had been to the OHL and were on their way back. So that was good hockey. It only lasted for 2 years. The league folded around Owen Sound. Owen Sound was the only team that was left standing. Everybody else folded their tent. And then we had a couple of more years of just Junior B. And then the Platers and the Holiday family moved here in June of 1989.
Well, having been there a number of times, in fact, it's a spot my family likes to go during summer vacation. Life in the OHL's smallest city, I'm sure, can be pretty quiet sometimes. And if I had to guess, considering, you know, you're just getting your last few rounds of golf in, that's probably something you don't mind too much.
Yeah, a little bit of quiet. But, you know, in the situation that we're in, Josh, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, as you mentioned, Owen Sound is a small city. And I'll say Owen Sound is an extremely small city. So, you know, the profile of the radio station, the hockey team, et cetera, is pretty high. And I would like to walk 5 feet in Owen Sound without somebody asking me what's up for the season ahead. So, you know what, it is quiet, but the level of anticipation is quite high, and maybe the level of anxiety is quite high right now.
Well, it's, you know, been a tremendous run of consistency for the Attack, so you can see why the fans are getting a little antsy. They want to see some more competitive hockey real soon. You know, the franchise under the guidance of GM Dale DeGray has gone 10 straight seasons with 30 wins or more, and I mean, though the playoff results have varied from year to year, you can't complain about a franchise that makes things interesting every season.
No, you're right, and you're going to have competitive stretches. I was just looking at it now over the course of 30 years. I think Owen Sound's missed the playoffs 5 times in that period of time, but not since 2010, which was Dale's 3rd year on the job. And Dale came in 2008 after Owen Sound had tried to do something significant in 2007, and so not starting from ground zero, but from that basis point, there was a lot of weeding out to be done and a lot of upgrading to be done from that point onward for the first 3 years. But since 2010 onward, you're right. Our mandate here in Owen Sound, according to Dale DeGray, is 30 wins a season, a playoff berth, and have competitive hockey and a good franchise based in a relatively small city.
Take us back to 2011. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that continues to be a great memory for you. And, you know, with everything from the outstanding playoff showing from Robbie McNarty, you know, the clutch pickup of Andrew Shaw, and, of course, Jared Maidens in Game 7, you know, you factor in the coaching of the late Mark Reeds, and there's really a lot that makes that 2011 attack team a really easy one to look back and like.
Yeah, and it was a highlight, and it was a broadcast highlight, no question about it. And just as you're talking now, and Josh, if I were to run that clip again, and I do it periodically, it gives you a chill, and it is a great moment in the history of Owen Sound sport. I think it was the climax of a very good series, a 7-game series. It was the climax of our best year, and also to a large extent, at that point, it represented 22 years and now 31 years of being a competitive franchise. So that particular moment in time is our greatest. I don't know that we'll ever equal it in terms of the drama. You know, we certainly hope to have a championship team again, but I don't know that we can ever hit that kind of height being on the road with half the building or more than half the building, you know, cheering for the road team on that particular afternoon. It really was a fabulous day, Josh.
One thing that kind of jumps out in attack history as I kind of look over the years is just the number of really good goaltenders the franchise has had. I mean, in the early days, you had Kevin Weeks and Jamie Storr, you know, through to Curtis Sanford and Brent Johnson, and then even some more recent names, of course, Jordan Binnington, you know, who won a Stanley Cup last year, and Michael McNiven. I guess we'll give Ray McKelvey some credit here. He's the only guy who's been there all the way through.
Ray McKelvey and some of the fans. So, no, there have been good goaltenders here. And one of the delightful things about the Ontario Hockey League and covering your team and being with your team is you're on the road with them. So last year, in a really unique circumstance, Owen Sound and Guelph were on the Eastern Swing at the same time. So Larry Malott, the Guelph broadcaster, and I got in touch, and we were having our breakfast at Denny's. And over to the table comes Jamie Storr, who I hadn't seen since 1995, probably. Wow. And he was there at the hockey tournament with his 10-year-old son and gave me an update about owning the Oakville Blades. And Jamie's memories of playing in Owen Sound, very strong. Kevin Weeks came here one time to promote his 5-hole clothing line. See Kevin often on TV. Mm-hmm. Scott Stager, there are some that believe, and I might be among them, that he was the best of the bunch. He's now a police officer, and we run into Scott. He still shows up at attack functions to support the team sometimes as an alumni. And of course, Jordan Binnington, that was a great story last year. So there have been great goaltenders and great moments through the course of time.
While we're on the topic of attack history, you know, you should mention the accomplishments of Bobby Ryan this season, you know, the leading scorer in franchise history and one who went through some challenges in Ottawa, but, you know, he got himself the help he needed and came back to win the Bill Masterton Trophy. Yeah,
and very genuine and good for Bobby. We're happy for Bobby. Bobby played here for 4 years. The numbers that he put up have not even been approached. You know, the next closest one was Andrew Brunette, and there's a faction of the people in Owen Sound that say, well, Andrew did his in 3 years, and if he hadn't played more. You know, and you have these great debates. But again, for Bobby, to talk about Bobby, very happy, very proud of him. What he was able to accomplish, and it'll be interesting to see what he can do going forward. We also, you know, quite proud here in Owen Sound of Mark Giordano, who won the Messier Award this year, played 2 years here, and Nick Suzuki in his first year makes the NHL All-Star team or the All-Rookie team, and so, you know, it's just an example of what you see. For $20 a night when you go to Owen Sound or Sarnia or Kitchener or wherever, you're going to see somebody that's going to do something somewhere down the line.
Yeah, some really big names have come through a city of 22,000 or so. It's really unique, and of course, the Bayshore is one of the more unique buildings in the league. You know, smaller in size, and you know the way some of the attack teams have been built, it probably feels like the opposition. You know, the attack are really bearing down on opposing teams, just the way they play physically. I mean, and the team this past season was no different. Guys like Mark Woolley and Andrew Parrott, you know, Carter Robertson and Brady Lyle, they can all really dish out some big hits and keep the opponents on their toes.
And we went for a long stretch too, probably, you know, in the early years of Dale DeGray, where the quote in the Ontario Hockey League was, "Oh, he's a typical Owen Sound forward." Zach Nastasiak would be an example of that. And going back to the Plater days, Ryan Christie out of Beamsville, you know, was a big strapping guy that could work the corners and the boards. The interesting thing, Josh, is, and it's amusing to me, but it's not amusing to the people in Owen Sound that are at the Bayshore facility, is that you will hear it all the time. Well, it's a small rink. It's a small rink. But they took the laser out. It's 200 by 100, or pardon me, 200 by 85, the same standard that you're going to find in most every other OHL arena. But the mental belief or the belief that some people have in their heads is, well, it's a small arena. We're going to have to move it quick because Owen Sound's going to be on us. So maybe we can use that to our advantage on some nights.
Yeah, no doubt. Maybe it's the ceiling being a little lower to the ice. I don't know, that makes it seem
that too. One of the things that gets Owen Sound, and maybe gets every team, is when we go into London and play in the Labatt Center, the Budweiser Gardens. They do that alley-oop play to perfection in London. No team in hockey does it as good as London. But London comes to Owen Sound and they try the alley-oop and it hits the scoreboard or hits the roof, and their whole playbook goes down the drain.
Yeah, take that one out of their playbook. Appears we're at the end of the Aiden Dudas era of attack hockey. He'll be starting the new season over in Germany. You're losing a character guy, a hard worker who's part of Canada's gold medal winning junior team in this past January. I have to think that's going to be a sizable void to fill, despite Aiden's smaller stature.
Yes, Aiden competed so hard for Owen Sound from the get-go. From a small town as well, from Parry Sound. One time on one of our northern junkets, we stopped in Parry Sound for our pregame, where halfway up to Sault Ste. Marie, I think the case was, and there was a decent contingent of people that came out to see Aiden. So Aiden is very personable, and the gold medal victory for him was, we're very happy for him, and now he moves on to his pro, hopefully in the LA Kings organization or with the Kings at some point. But for right now, I think it's important that Aiden plays pro hockey, and we wish him and the handful of OHL guys that are going over there.
Seems to be a lot of optimism surrounding the club's 2019 draft crop. Of course, with maybe that's 2020. I mean, with Denny Gour, Ethan Burrows, Caleb Lawrence, and of course Sam Sedley all breaking in last season. What were the first impressions like there? Do those guys offer some long-term stability for the attack?
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Denny Gour probably would have went way up the chart on the underage scoring for Owen Sound. I don't think he cracked the top 10. I'd have to check my figures on that, but he would be very close. He had 11 or 12 goals last year. The most ever by an underage is Bobby Ryan, 22, and Daniel Siska had 22 as well in his underage year. So that's the bar. And I don't think Denny would have got there, but with 6-7 more games to play, he'd have got a couple more and maybe had moved up towards the top 5. So Denny was very good. Ethan Burrows was very good as well. And this is not a knock on Ethan, but I think what happened to Ethan is what happens to a lot of underages in the OHL, that you get to a certain point and there is a wall. You're playing more games. When Ryan McGill was our coach, he said that he put a mental timeline on U.S. Thanksgiving, because when players start, they're excited, they're keen, but by U.S. Thanksgiving, end of November, well, suddenly, boy, this has been a long season and a lot of work and not what I'm used to. So I'm not saying that's the case with Ethan, but his start was terrific, and I'm sure he's going to be a great player. Caleb Lawrence is a huge body. Got some goals in limited opportunity with us. And Sam Sedley, if we were looking for a comparison, might be our next Sean Dursey, which is another great story in Owen Sound.
I think one guy we should touch on, and he's been sort of a development project over the last few years, has been Mac Guzdan. I think we saw Mac take a pretty big step forward last year.
Yeah, and good for Mac. And Mac won't tell you this, but it's my opinion that Mac was thrust into a position way too early. In his underage year, by November, we had a key home and home with the Kitchener Rangers with first place on the line. So it's November of his underage season, and he played both of those games, the Wednesday night game at home and the Friday night game at Kitchener. And that's an awful lot. And when we got to the playoffs that year, he played Game 6 and Game 7 against the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds in round number 2 of that series. So he had awful lot on his plate. And I don't know we've ever had an underage goalie who's had that kind of responsibility so early. So I think Mac's grown up. He's developed. He's got he always had a big frame, but now it's a bulkier frame or a more goalie conducive frame. So yeah, we're looking forward for Mac and also Nick Chenard as well. Nick did very well last year in his first season for Owen Sound. So again, back to your goaltending thought, Josh.
Yeah, it's funny. I spoke with Mac just a few weeks ago. We talked about some of those early experiences, and he admitted, in the moment, those were challenges for him. Things that he had to conquer. But in hindsight, he says, those things have benefited and shaped the goalie who I am now. So perhaps it's it's got him geared up for what looks to be a very promising season for a goalie who I think is maybe a little under the radar in terms of pro prospects.
Right. And again, it's good that Mac recognizes that, because I remember asking him in his underage year, you're getting an awful lot of responsibility pretty early. And that's what I want. That was his answer. So you like that mental attitude and that mental frame, and I'm sure he's going to be fine. With our goaltending for this year, I think it's going to be Mac and Nick, and we'll have to wait and see who else knocks on the door. But there's always a planned rotation in Owen Sound in terms of what's next. While we're looking at Mac and Nick right now, what's next will be interesting, Josh. That's for sure. So I think we're well set in net. And the other thing about playing goal in Owen Sound, or even playing for the Attack in general, is the division that we're in. You go into the Kitchener Auditorium on a Friday night. You go into London's Arena on a Friday night. Guelph to a certain extent, and Erie when Erie's going well. Those are tough buildings to go into. And if you're a young goaltender and you look around and there's 9,000 in London, 7,000 in Kitchener, they're all looking at the net.
Yeah, some big crowds definitely throw you into the deep end as a young goaltender. One of the unique things, of course, and the challenges we face right now, and of course, just based off some of my conversations with longer-serving names around the league, such as, Commissioner David Branch and Kingston play-by-play guy Jimmy Gilchrist, and of course yourself. We don't really have a playbook for dealing with COVID-19. We've got training camps slated to open November 15th and a season scheduled to get underway on December 1st. I'm sure you're feeling a little out of sorts having not started games yet, but I'm sure it's good to know there are some timelines in place.
Yeah, and Dale DeGray came on the radio with us to tell us exactly that. He said the dates are set. They are by no means set in stone, and there's a lot of things that could impact it that are right out of everybody's hands in the Ontario Hockey League. Public health officials, government directives, they can all take these timelines. But you're right, Josh, and Dale said, it's nice that now I can tell my kids, be ready for November 14th to be in Owen Sound for the Stepan Makacheks of the world. You're to be here October 31st. We'll start training camp, and then after that, we've got 2 weekends of exhibition play. So, there's some anxiety, I'm sure, right around the league, Josh, and probably for yourself, that there are things that you would normally be doing at this time of the year that you haven't been doing, and things that you can't do because you don't have any firm guidance. The dates are in place, great, but when does it get stamped as official? So yeah, fish out of water is a pretty good example. It's
certainly been different.
Yeah.
Well, get those last few rounds of golf in, Fred. I look forward to hearing your voice again over the air real soon, and I hope you've been able to enjoy a little bit of the downtime these past few months.
Yeah, it's been different. Let's put it that way. So, Josh, thank you very much. Appreciate all the information I get from the OHL on a daily basis, and keeps the Attack and the league in the news. So I really appreciate having me on today.
Thanks, Fred. Take care.
All right. Thank you.